Welcome to week 7, where we will be talking about how to take better notes. The learning objectives for this week are students who master this chapter will be able to give an example on how to apply the power process, which is the I created all, to a current situation in their lives. List strategies for preparing to take notes in class, highlight key words in a lecture transcript, translate a lecture transcript into an outline, concept map, and Cornell format pages of notes. List ways to take effective notes during PowerPoint presentations. List ways to take effective notes on a fast-paced lecture, and give examples of ways the instructors signal possible test questions. Your assignments for this week are to read the chapter, do the 2 written assignments, attend the lecture and watch this pre-recorded lecture, of course, and take the lecture quiz. Right now, this is the link for the chapter 5, which is on notes. There are many ways for students to take notes. This chapter introduces the note-taking process of observing, recording, and reviewing, which one can be used for any note-taking method or class. Common challenges of taking notes, such as an instructor who talks too quickly, are also addressed to help students learn to take effective notes in a variety of situations. So this is the link for the chapter. Under that, you're going to find the pre-recorded lecture, which I'm doing right now, and you'll find the quiz as well under the pre-recorded lecture. But for now, this is the week 7 written assignment. This is the assignment 1. And it states to read chapter 5, use what you learned, and based on your own experience, answer the following questions in a Word document and submit it through the Turnitin link below. And as always, here is the link below to turn it in. So the assignment is worth 25 points. So number 1 asks you to copy and paste 1 page of your notes that you take using one of the techniques you learned about in chapter 5 this week. So this expects you to use one of the techniques that we're going to be talking about and attempt to do one of your notes for either this class or another class, but you would then have to copy and paste it to show and give an example and show what you did for one of your classes. Number 2, it asks you, in general, I find my notes to be most useful when and you fill in the blank. For 3 is rate the overall quality of the notes that you took using whichever method you chose, and score it for 1 as the lowest score and 5 as the highest score. Explain why using this technique was good or bad. Number 4, the idea from this chapter that could make the biggest difference in the quality of my notes is, and you would fill in the blank. And number 5 is, the new note-taking habit that I plan to adopt is, and you would fill in the blank. And then you would submit it here. I'm not going to go into the second assignment. We're going to talk about this during class. But know that this is the second part of your mini research paper and the expectations that you're going to have to do for this week. So like I said, we'll go over it during class. I will not go over it right now. Here is the link to the PowerPoint for this week. I'll probably be going over just a few slides. I've decided to go into the chapter a little bit more, but yeah, I'll be going over a few slides. Here's some websites. We use OneDrive here for school because we have free access to it because of Outlook. And then this right here is the citation machine. And this is going to be good for our talk on the mini research paper. And it's going to show you, it's a web page that's going to show you exactly how to input the information, and it'll cite whatever reading or journal or whatever source you're using. And then down here are links to the APA Writing Style 7th edition and the APA Reference Guide PDF. So this is going to help you format your papers correctly, and this is for your mini research, and this is also going to show you how to cite everything that you need to cite correctly. So like I said, this week is about taking better notes. So let's start off with the chapter and the first concept it introduces, which is the power process. I created all. This article describes a powerful tool for times of trouble. In a crisis, I created all can lead the way to solutions. The main point of this power process is to treat experience, events, and circumstances in your life as if you created them. I created all is one of the most unusual and bizarre suggestions in this book. It certainly is not a belief. Use it when it works, don't when it doesn't. Keep that in mind. Consider how powerful this power process can be. It is really about the difference between two distinct positions in life, being a victim or being responsible. A victim of circumstance is controlled by outside forces. We've all felt like victims at one time or another. Sometimes we felt helpless. In contrast, we can take responsibility. Responsibility is response ability, the ability to choose a response to any event. You can choose your response to any event, even when the event itself is beyond your control. Many students approach grades from this position of being victims. When the student who sees the world this way gets an F, she or he reacts probably like this. Another F. That teacher couldn't teach her way out of a wet paper bag. She can't teach English for anything. There's no way to take notes in that class. And that textbook, what a bore. The problem with this viewpoint is that in looking for excuses, the student is robbing herself of the power to get any grade other than an F. She's giving all her power to a bad teacher and a boring textbook. There's another way called taking responsibility. You can recognize that you choose your grades by choosing your actions. Then you are the source rather than the result of the grades you get. The student who got an F could react like this. Another F, oh shoot. Well, what did I do to create it? Now that's power. By asking, how did I contribute to this outcome, you are no longer the victim. The student might continue by saying, well, let's see. I didn't review my notes after class. That might have done it. Or I went out with my friends the night before the test. Well, that probably helped me fulfill some of the requirements for getting an F. The point is, when the F is the result of your friends, the book, or the teacher, you probably can't do anything about it. However, if you choose the F, you can choose. If you chose the F, you can choose a different grade next time. You are in charge. So the note-taking process flows. First, you observe an event. This can be a statement by an instructor, a lab experiment, a slideshow of an artist's works, or a chapter of required reading. Then you record your observations of that event. That is, you take notes. This can be recorded in a variety of formats: paragraphs, outlines, diagrams, and more. Finally, you review what you have recorded. You memorize, reflect, apply, and rehearse that you are learning. This step lifts ideas off the page and turns them into working part of your mind. Each of those note-taking process is essential, and each depends on the others. Your observations determine what you record. What you record determines what you review. And the quality of your review can determine how effective your next observations will be. If you review your notes on the Sino-Japanese War of 1894, for example, the next day's lecture on the Boxer Rebellion of 1900 will make more sense. Legible and speedy handwriting is also useful in taking notes. Knowledge of outlining is handy too. A nifty pen, a new notebook, and a laptop computer are all great note-taking devices. And they're all worthless unless you participate as an energetic observer in a class and regularly review your notes after class. If you take those two steps, you can turn even the most disorganized chicken scratches into a powerful tool. This is a well-researched aspect of student success in higher education. Students study after study points to the benefits of taking notes. The value is added in two ways. First, you create a set of materials that refreshes your memory and helps you prepare for tests. Second, taking notes prompts you to listen effectively during class. You translate new ideas into your own words and images. You impose a personal and meaningful structure on what you see, read, and hear. You move from passive observer to active participant. It is not that you take notes so that you can learn from them later. Instead, you learn while taking notes. Computer technology takes traditional note taking to a whole new level. You can capture key notes with word processing, outlining, database, and publishing software. Your notes become living documents that you can search, bookmark, tag, and archive like other digital files. In short, note taking is a brain friendly activity. Taking notes leads you to actively encode the material in your own words and images, an effective strategy for moving new information into long term memory. Sometimes note taking looks like a passive affair, especially in large lecture classes. One person at the front of the room does most of the talking, everyone else is seated and silent taking notes. That lecturer seems to be doing all of the work. Don't be deceived. Look more closely. You'll see some students taking notes in a way that radiates energy. They're awake and alert, poised on the edge of their seats. They're writing, a physical activity that expresses mental engagement. These students listen for levels of ideas and information. They make choices about what to record and compile materials to review. In higher education, you might spend hours of hours taking notes. Making them more effective is a direct investment to your success. Think of your notes as a textbook that you create, one that's more current and more in tune with your learning preferences than any textbook you could buy. So observe the note taking process flow. Before it was just a note taking process, so now it's saying observe. So an accountant can save a client thousands of dollars by observing the details of a spreadsheet. A student can save hours of study time by observing that she gets twice as much done at a particular time of the day. So that is just saying that how an accountant, if they're in tune and they observe details on a spreadsheet, that they can save thousands of dollars. And that's just comparing it now to the student. And if a student knew that they would work better, let's say between the hours of 1 to 3, it would be smart to then start using the hours to 1 to 3 because they're getting twice as much done. Keen observers see facts and relationships. They know ways to focus their attention on the details and then tap their creative energy to discover patterns. Observation starts with preparation. Arrive early and then put your brain in gear by reviewing your notes from the previous class. Scan your reading assignments. Look at those sections you have underlined or highlighted. Review assigned problems and exercises. Note questions you intend to ask. To further sharpen your classroom observation skills, experiment with the following techniques and continue to use those that you find most valuable. Many of these strategies can be adapted to the notes you take while reading. So let's go to the PowerPoint. So part of the observe, there's 3 steps here, and it's set the stage, be here now, and watch for clues. So setting the stage is basically talking about getting prepared for taking your notes. So the first thing it says is to complete outside assignments. And that means to complete the assignments for that class. Because if you've completed the assignments for that class, when it's time to go into class and hear a lecture concerning all that stuff, whatever the topic may be, you're going to be prepared. So completing the assignments would be reading the chapter, doing whatever homework is asked for. That way, when it's time to sit in class, you're not lost and you know what the teacher is talking about. It also says bring the right materials, sit front and center, conduct a pre-class review, and clarify your intentions. Be here now says to accept wandering mind. So meaning that you know there's going to be times that your mind is going to wander, just get back into focus. Notice your writing. Be with the instructor. Notice your environment. Postpone debate. Let go of judgments. Participate. Relate class to your goals and think critically. And finally, it says watch for clues. Be alert to repetition. Listen for introductory, concluding, and transition words. Watch the board or PowerPoint. Watch instructor's eyes. Highlight obvious clues. And notice instructor's interest level. And the next topic is record. And record meaning is taking your notes. So you're going to want to use keywords. You're going to want to use pictures and diagrams. Write notes in paragraphs. copy from board or PowerPoint. Suggest to use a 3-ring binder. Just in case you need to add notes later, you can also just open up the rings and, organize them better than a spiral notebook. Write on one side of paper only. Use 3x5 index cards. Keep your own thoughts separate. Use an I'm lost signal with the professor. So maybe make a face or shrug your shoulders or let the professor know that you're kind of lost, and maybe that so that they can talk about the topic again and clarify anything. Label, number, and date your notes. Leave blank spaces, and you leave blank spaces just because maybe the professor goes back to something that they may have forgotten, and now if you haven't left any blank spaces, there's no space for you to add whatever you need to add. Use different colored pens. Use graphic signals. Use recording devices if your professor allows it, and use different note-taking methods. And we're going to go over 3 note-taking methods today. So the first one is the Cornell method. It's a note-taking system developed by Walter Puck at Cornell University in the 1950s. The first thing you do is format the paper with a Q column, which is right here on the left, with a note column, which is right here to the right, and a summary section, which is right here on the bottom. So as you can see, the note section is the biggest section because that's where you're going to do most of your writing. The Q column is going to be where you put the different topics, and you're going to see now in a video that I'm going to play. And then the summary is the bottom where you're going to summarize your notes. So take notes first, then fill out the Q column, and then finally add a summary. So let's watch a video about the Cornell method.
Hey, so a couple of weeks ago, I shared with you one of the ways that I took notes in nursing school. I got a lot of comments on that video, as well as a lot of emails sent to me, and I thought it was pretty interesting that a lot of people don't know the different methods that you can use to take notes. So in this video, I'm actually going to be sharing with you the second way that I took notes in nursing school. And the second way that I took notes was using the Cornell method of note-taking. I really enjoyed taking my notes using the Cornell method because it already was formatted in the way that I studied in nursing school, which was by asking myself questions and also lecturing to myself. The beauty of Cornell notes is that they will save you a lot of time because not only are you able to write down all of the information that is being said in class or as you are reading, but you can then pull out questions from that information that will later help you study. And then the summary of it also helps you connect things together, kind of in the same way that you saw me do in my concept map video. In fact, I use the concept of Cornell note-taking and I applied it to concept maps because that's just what worked for me. But today I'm going to show you how easy it is to take Cornell-style notes. The first thing that you're going to want to do is grab a lined piece of paper and you're going to want to divide it into 3 sections, like this. At the top of the page, you're of course going to put today's date and the topic that's being discussed in lecture. The middle section, which is the biggest section, is where you're going to start writing down everything that you feel is important from lecture and from your reading. After lecture, or after you've completed your reading, you're going to use the left-hand side to pull out key ideas, definitions, and questions that you create based on the information that's in the middle section. Once you've done that, at the bottom of the page, you're going to summarize what that topic is about. And here's a little tip to help you learn how to summarize information. Ask yourself this question: how would I explain this particular topic to a 5-year-old who's never heard of this topic before? You want to put it in your own words and you want to summarize it as simply as possible. If you can't explain something simply, then you don't fully understand it. Well, I hope that you found this note-taking tip video helpful. And if you want more information like this, you want a step-by-step format for you to pass college, or how I like to call it, rock at college, make sure that you sign up for my VIP list. The link.
So that was just an example on how to do Cornell notes. So the next form of note taking, or the next method, would be mind mapping. This is note taking system developed by Tony Buzan. It starts with a paper or a document with a lot of room. Determine the main concepts and add keywords and links between the keywords and main concepts. So this is talking about muscle reading, and as we learned last week, there's 3 different phases. It's outlining the 3 phases and what each phase says, and then the learner, preview, read, recite, renew. So let's watch a video on mind mapping.
Hey everyone, so today we're going to talk about one of my favorite ways to take notes. Now traditionally, most students take notes in outline format, but one of the ways that I took my notes in nursing school was using mind maps, or how some students like to call them, concept maps. Now the reason why I like mind maps over outlines when it comes to taking notes is because I feel like outlines force you to absorb and format your information and organize it all at the same time, which doesn't really give you enough time to kind of process the information and for you to make your own connections. With mind maps, on the other hand, you have time to absorb the information, kind of make sense of it on your own, and then with the mind map, you can draw connections between the different material that you're learning in that particular class. And that's actually the way that our brain normally works. When we receive new information, our mind automatically starts associating it to things that we've learned in the past, which makes it easier for us to recall later on when we need the information. So what I'm going to do now is switch camera angles, and I'm going to show you how simple it is to create a mind map of your notes. Now the catch with mind maps is that you need to have already gone to lecture or read the material for the particular section. You're going to start off with the blank piece of paper, and either in the middle or at the top of the section you're going to write the main topic. From there you're going to branch off into the different sections that make up that particular topic. As you guys can see here, I'm basically breaking down the different types of diabetes into type 1 and type 2. I'm going into what causes each of them, and then what are some of the signs and symptoms of diabetes. I'm using arrows, clouds, and circles to kind of pinpoint different sections, and then to add color, I'm using highlighters, and I'm also using colored sticky notes to just draw my eye to particular sections that I'm going to need to know for my exam. And it also makes it really pretty when things are colorful. And let's be honest, as girls, we want our notes to be pretty as well as informative. Often I use arrows to draw my attention to what would come next in a particular section. So once I understand what causes diabetes and what the signs and symptoms are, I might want to know what a nurse would do to confirm if somebody has diabetes. So in this case, we would do a glucose tolerance test. So the arrow is pointing to that coming next. One of the things that I also like to do is use really bright sticky notes for information that I'm going to need to absolutely know for my exam. And it kind of just breaks it up, and it's something that I can peel off if I want to test myself later. Get creative with your mind maps and make them yours. Well, that's it. I hope that you found this video helpful. And before you go, make sure that you go ahead and sign up to my...
So that was an example of mind mapping. And as you can see, this one's a little different because it started in the middle, but it's just creating your own map. The last method that we're going to be talking about today is outlining. Outlining is a note-taking system that shows relationships between major points and supporting ideas. Start by adding headings, subheadings, and content under those headings. Keep adding headings and subheadings and content as needed. So I'm sure all of you have seen an outline before. You know, many professors and many teachers use different outlines. Here's an example on how to create a PowerPoint into an outline. So let's say I wanted to print this, right? And I did not want to print each slide. So I'll go to File, Print, and then here where it says Layout, you put Outline. And there it is, outlined for you here. The only thing about doing this is that if there is a picture, like here in slide 1, the picture's not going to come out. So sometimes you'll miss a graph. Let's say there's a slide just with a graph. It's not going to show you the graph. But here's basically what it does. If you can see here better, it outlines the entire PowerPoint for you. So that's a little trick on how to instantly, from a PowerPoint, create into an outline. So what I'm going to do now is there's another video, the last video for today, and it's going to go over outlining towards the end of this video. In the beginning, he talks about note-taking. He is going to talk about the other methods, but it's a pretty good video overall, so that's why I'm showing it.
Hi, I'm Thomas Frank. This is Crash Course Study Skills, and today we're going to look at how to take great notes. And you're probably going to want to write that down. Why focus on your notes? Well, simply put, when it comes to learning and retaining information, output is just as important as input. When you're first learning a fact or a concept, you're intaking new information. But to retain that information for a long time, you need to store it in a place that you can easily access later on, and you need to put it in your own words. Now, before we talk about specific note-taking systems, what information you should actually record in your notes, and whether or not it's helpful to blend them up and drink them like a milkshake, let's start with what's going to set you up for success in the first place, showing up to class prepared with the right tools. There are 3 routes you can go in selecting those tools: paper, computer, or ARM. What's the best option? Well, unless you're that guy from Memento, we can probably narrow it down to either paper or a computer. Between those two, there's been a debate going on for years, but we do have some recent scientific evidence that we can turn to for some hard answers. According to a study done at Princeton University in 2014, students who took notes on a 15-minute lecture using a laptop wrote an average of 310 words, while those who wrote on paper only averaged 173. So it seems that typing your notes definitely does give you a speed advantage. The downside to becoming the metaphorical speed racer of note-taking, though, was that these same students were able to recall less information when tested later on. So why does this happen? Well, the root of the problem lies in the fact that the computer note-takers were much more likely to record what was being presented word for word. Let's go to the thought bubble. When you're paying attention to a lecture, there are 2 aspects of the information being presented. Since complex information is communicated through language, be it written or spoken, we get both the syntax, like the letters and sounds that make up the words, as well as the meaning. When you're typing out your notes, the speed advantage enables you to record a much more complete version of what your teacher is saying. However, your working memory, the part of your memory that deals with the information you're currently intaking, can only deal with so much at a time. And current cognitive science research puts that amount at around 4 bits or chunks of information, which we'll talk about in another video. The combination of the recording speed advantage and your built-in mental processing limit can lead you to devote more mental resources to the syntax of the message, those pesky letters and sounds, and less to the actual meaning. As a result, you learn less in class, and you create more work for yourself later on. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So does this mean that a pen and paper always beats your laptop? Well, not necessarily. Now that you know that the speed increase you get through typing has a downside, you can just resolve to type less and pay more attention to the meaning of the message while you're in class. Still, paper does have an implicit advantage as it requires less self-control. Your longhand writing speed automatically limits how much you pay attention to the syntax, and as a bonus, you don't have to worry about being tempted to go on Facebook in the middle of class either. Regardless of what tool you decide to choose though, make sure you come into class well prepared. If you're using paper, have a well-organized notebook with plenty of blank space, as well as a good quality pen that you enjoy writing with. And if you decide that a computer fits your style better, find a good note-taking app like Evernote or OneNote, Dropbox Paper, or any other that fits your fancy. You should also close out of any apps or websites that aren't relevant to the lecture. That'll help you stay focused, though you still might have to work to ignore that guy in front of you who's taking a BuzzFeed quiz to figure out his Hogwarts house. I'm a Ravenclaw, by the way. Though that's just what a Slytherin would say, isn't it? Anyway, now that you're prepared and equipped with the right tools, what exactly should you be recording with them? After all, you can't just record everything. As the famous mathematician Eric Temple Bell noted, the map is not the thing mapped. Just like a map is useful only if it summarizes and simplifies what it represents, your notes are a useful reviewing tool only when there's a high signal-to-noise ratio. That means they've got to be packed with the information you need to know for the tests and later application, and devoid of anything that doesn't matter. It's a bit hard to make specific recommendations here since there are so many different subjects and classes in which you'll need your note-taking skills. However, we can put forth some general guidelines that will point you in the right direction. First and foremost, gauge each class you're taking early on. Carefully look at the syllabus, pay attention to any study guides or review materials you can get your hands on, and make mental notes about different types of questions you see on early quizzes and tests. Additionally, anytime you hear your professor say something like, "This is important, pay attention," in lecture, that's a cue to take extra careful notes. A lot of my friends in school thought it was a cue to take a nap, but they were wrong. Beyond that, whether you're sitting in class or going through a reading assignment in your textbook, you want to pay special attention to things like big ideas, summaries, overviews, or conclusions, bullet lists, like this one, terms and definitions, and examples. And examples are doubly important, especially in classes where you have to apply concepts and formulas to problems, like in math or physics. You can probably remember times when an example presented in class made perfect sense, but then a later homework problem using the same exact concept completely stumped you. There's a big difference between being able to follow along while someone else solves a problem and having the chops to solve it on your own. But by recording every detail of the examples you see in class, as well as making side notes about why the concepts being used work, you'll have a lot more ammunition to work with while you're tackling those homework problems. Now that we've covered the elements of good, useful notes, let's get into the specifics of how to take them. Now there are plenty of note-taking systems out there, each with their own pros and cons, but with this video we're just going to focus on three: the outline method, the Cornell method, and the mind mapping method. The outline method is probably the simplest one of them all, and it's likely the one you're most familiar with. To use it, you just record the details of the lecture or book you're reading in a bullet list. Each main point will be a top-level bullet, and underneath it you'll indent further and further as you add more details and specifics. The syllabus I wrote for this very crash course series is a good example of outline-style notes. Each video's outline has several different top-level bullets, followed by several levels of detail. Yes, this is my actual outline. Now, the outline method is great for creating well-organized notes, but because it's so rigid, you can easily end up with a ton of notes that all look the same. So to prevent that from happening, use formatting tricks to make important details stand out when you're reviewing them later on. For example, in these notes I took during an information systems class, you can see that I've got several details written down underneath prototyping. All of them were important enough to write down, but since the professor specifically mentioned that quick development and low cost were the most important aspects of prototyping, I made sure to bold that line. Next, we're going to go over the Cornell method. Developed by the Cornell University professor Walter Pock back in the 1950s and popularized in his book How to Study in College, the Cornell method is a time-tested system that involves dividing your paper or a table in your note-taking app into three distinct sections: the Q column, the notes column, and the summary column. During a lecture, take your actual notes in the aptly named notes column. Yeah, you'll learn that there's not a whole lot of misdirection when it comes to study skills. Anyway, here you can use any method you want, be it the standard outline method that we just talked about, or something more flexible. At the same time, when you think of questions that weren't answered in the lecture, or that would be great prompts for later review, write them down in the Q column. These questions will come in handy when you're going through your notes in the future, as they'll point you to the most important information and help to frame your thinking. The summary area will remain empty until the lecture is over. Once that time comes, take 2 or 3 minutes to briefly look over the notes you took and the questions you wrote down, and then write a 1 to 2 sentence summary of the biggest ideas that were covered. This serves as an initial review, which helps to consolidate everything that was presented up here and to solidify your understanding while everything is still fresh in your mind. If neither of these two methods seems like the right fit for you, you might like the final method we're going to cover, which is mind mapping. Mind maps are diagrams that visually represent the relationships between individual concepts and facts. Like outline-style maps, they're very hierarchical, but that's where the similarities end. Outline-style notes are linear and read much like normal text, while mind maps look more like trees or spider webs. To create a mind map, you write the main concept smack dab in the middle of the page, and then branch out from there to flesh out the details. This method works really well on paper, but there are also apps like Coggle, which will let you create mind maps on your computer as well. So what's the best method? Well, that's up for you to decide. I recommend trying each one out and making your own tweaks as you go along. Also, remember that not every class will work best with the exact same method. Your history notes are probably going to look pretty different from your math notes. So that's where we're going to wrap this video up. At this point, you should know how to come to class prepared to take good notes, what to focus on during the lecture, and what method to use. In a future video, we'll follow up on these points with some tips on how you can review those notes during your study sessions, but for now, just go take some good notes. Thanks for watching.
So there he spoke about, you saw the mind mapping as well, and he spoke about the Cornell, but he also then spoke about the outlining. So those are the three um, methods that you can use or try to use. And let's go to the next slide. So when you're reviewing your notes, you want to review within 24 hours. You want to edit your notes because you may want to add a few things or clear things up. Look at the Cornell keywords, recite with keywords, short weekly reviews, consider typing your notes, create summaries, and evaluate. So if you guys remember last week, I spoke about what I used to do, and here it is in the PowerPoint saying to do the same thing. I used to write up all my notes, and then what I would do as a form of studying and organizing my notes, I would then type them up. And that act itself helped me at least um, retain a lot of the information because from that point, not only did I write the notes, but now I'm typing them again. So I'm redoing the notes all over again and organizing them, so that basically was a form of studying as well. And then I would, like I told you last week, during the week, like let's say before the exam, I would do short reviews that would last 20 minutes, maybe 30, 40 minutes, where I would, review my type notes, maybe highlight things, write things next to them, and that would be what I would use to review for the test. So here are some tips to take notes while you're reading. So you're going to want to condense it into key quotes and condense by paraphrasing, which means that you would read the chapter, or read, let's say, a section of the chapter. You've now understood what the chapter is trying to tell you, at least that section, and then in your own words, you would write that. Look at the table of contents, create a table of contents as well, and then you would research your notes by using index cards, use a computer, and include sources. So another part of the textbook talks about taking notes for online coursework. So you're going to want to manage your time and tasks carefully and do a trial run of the technology. Develop a contingency plan, get actively involved, take notes, create folders and files, take responsibility, ask for help, focus, get feedback, and contact other students. So this is just basically giving you some advice on an online course and the fact that you're going to be using your computer. So so you're going to want to do all the things that you need to do because now you're not showing up to class anymore once or twice a week, and it's a little bit more now responsibility to make sure that you're logging in and doing what you got to do, because at the end of the day you don't have a professor that you're meeting face to face once or twice a week that's kind of like reminding you as students what you need to do. So let's go back to the textbook. And as you can see, what I just did was hit those little 3 lines and I'm back on the table of content for this chapter. So remember that in the PowerPoint it said to go over this because here's basically an outline for you of the chapter. So for example, here we see observe the note-taking process flow. And then that set the stage, be here now, and watch for clues about important material. If you remember, set the stage had some stuff, some points to point out. Be here now had some points, and watch for clues had some points. In your outline, you would add these points under these subtopics because the main topic is here. Here's again, record the note-taking process flows. So general techniques for taking notes. We had the 3 methods, and then there's here a section for combining the formats. But here for outlining, maybe you would, write a few things in an outlining form, or you could even write this study set is an outline. Under mind mapping, you would draw a map, just so you know what mind mapping is. In the Cornell method, you would draw on that piece of paper the 3 sections to know what the Cornell method looked like. So here you have, like I said, your own little mini outline of what to expect for this chapter. So we're now at this point. So visualize ideas with concept maps. So as you can see, this is a mind mapping. Concept mapping is a tool pioneered by Joseph Novak and D. Bob Gowen. These psychologists were deeply influenced by the work of a researcher named David Azubel. In The Psychology of Meaningful Verbal Learning, Azubel wrote that the essence of learning is a subject of integrating new concepts with concepts that we already know. We do this by creating propositions, statements that link unfamiliar concepts to those that are familiar. Concept maps express this process in visual form. The key elements are a main concept reading at the top of the page, related concepts arranged in a hierarchy and with more general concepts toward the top of the page and more specific concepts towards the bottom of the page. And the lastly would be links, lines with words that briefly explain the relationship between concepts. When you combine concepts with their linking words, you'll often get complete sentences or sets of coherent phrases. These are the propositions described by Azubel. With all of the words in the English language at your disposal, you have unlimited possibilities for creating new propositions about any topic, using the following steps to create concept maps. So first is choose one concept as a focus. To begin, limit the scope of your concept maps. Choose one general concept as a focus, the main topic of the chapter, article, or lecture. So for here would be note taking, because this chapter is about taking better notes. So taking better notes would be the main focus. Express this concept in 1 or 3 words. Concept words are usually nouns and adjectives, including key terms and proper names. Circle your main concept. So you would be like how to take better notes. List related concepts. Next, brainstorm a list of concepts that are related to your main concept. Don't worry about putting these concepts in any order yet. Just list them, again expressing each concept in a single word or short phrase. For ease in rearranging and ranking the concepts later, you might wish to write each one in a single index card or a single line in a word processing file. So the list related concepts for the note taking would be like, be prepared, set the stage, which we can go back here. Let's go back here for a second. So these would be the links: set the stage, be here now, watch for clues about important material. Others would be the Cornell method, the mind mapping, the outlining. So those would be the related concepts for taking better notes. Arrange concepts in hierarchy. Rank concepts on a continuum from general to specific. Then create the body of your concept map by placing the main concept at the top and the most specific concepts at the bottom. Arrange the rest of the concepts in appropriate places throughout the middle. Again, circle each concept. Allow some time for this step and be willing to shuffle concepts around until you're satisfied with the arrangement. Add links. Draw lines that connect the concepts along with words that describe their relationship. Limit yourself to the fewest words needed to make accurate links. Linking words are often verbs, verb phrases, or prepositions. Revise your map. Look for any concept that are repeated in several places on the map. You can avoid these duplications by adding more links between concepts. Also add any missing concepts and see if you can clarify vague links. Avoid string maps, concepts that flow in basically a straight line from the top to bottom. String maps are often a single to expand your understanding by adding concepts, links, or both. In this way, you create a richer set of relationships between the concepts. So here's an example of concept maps. Consider the following paragraph. Muscle reading consists of 3 phases. Phase 1 includes tasks to complete before reading. Phase 2 is tasks take place during reading. And finally, phase 3 includes tasks to complete after reading. So in that paragraph, the concepts are here: muscle reading, reading, phases, tasks, and the 3 phases. The links include before, during, and after. As here it talks about what you need to do before, during, and after. A concept map of the previous paragraph is illustrated here. So here you see muscle reading consists of phases including here are the three phases, and that's preview, outline, question, focus, flag answers, recite, review, and review again, which, as you remember from last week, are phase 1, 2, and 3 of muscle reading. And there they are, 1, 2, and 3. You can often build a concept map from the headings within an article or a chapter of a book. For example, consider a textbook about nutrition that includes basic guidelines about how to eat well. This chapter includes the following headings. Quantity is portion size and watching portion size. Variety is eat grain, especially whole grains. Eat water-based foods, especially fruits and vegetables. So here would be the mapping, the concept map. Nutrition basics include what? Quantity and variety. Include quantity and variety, which means watching portion size and variety of grains and a variety of water-based foods. And what type of grains? Whole grains. And what type of water-based foods? Fruits and vegetables. So you see that this right here is basically all the information that you got from the facts here. So the benefits of concept maps. Concept mapping promotes critical thinking. It alerts you to missing concepts or faulty links between concepts. Concept mapping is also brain friendly. This technique for taking notes mirrors the way your brain learns, that is, by linking new concepts to concepts that you already know. Links between concepts can be compared to the links between brain cells that start to form when you encounter new material. In short, concept maps are visual reminders of how your brain changes when you learn. So taking effective notes for online coursework. So you're going to want to manage your time carefully, like we said in the PowerPoint slide. You're also going to want to do a trial run of the technology that you're going to be using. So you need to know Blackboard, you need to know how to do PowerPoint presentations and how to access quizzes and bulletin boards and look at the announcements. So this is just familiarizing yourself with the technology that you're going to be using due to the school, or the technology also that you're going to be using on your own to create your notes. So develop a contingency plan as well. Get actively involved with the course. Take notes on course material. Set up folders and files for easy reference. Take responsibility, ask for help, focus your attention, and ask for feedback. And contact other students. It's always good, whether you're in an online class or not, to become friends with at least one student that's in your class that you can both rely on each other, just in case you miss, just in case you misunderstood something, just in case you need to ask a question and you can't get a hold of the professor. You always have that one person that you can get in contact with to help you out with the class as well. So taking notes 2.0, and this is just basically introducing you that of the different software. So one option is to create a plain text document for each of your courses and your personal journey. Key your notes into those documents. Chances are you already have software for creating plain text documents. Our computers come loaded with text edit, and iPhones offers notes. Windows users can use Notepad. The documents you create with such software is called plain text because it's stripped of special formatting. The advantage is that almost any software can read plain text documents and they consume little memory. So store your notes in the iCloud. Take access to your documents. To access your documents, store them in Dropbox, a Google Drive, or OneDrive, which, like I said earlier, you guys, we all have OneDrive here for free. It comes with our Outlook and which is our email. So we're able to share documents that way as well, or any other web service that backs up documents. Many of them will offer you several gigabytes of online storage for free. Sign up for the service, create a test document, and then edit it. Check to make sure that the edited version shows up correctly on all your devices. So consider online outliners and mind mappers. So a growing number of websites allow you to create outlines and mind maps. Just sign up for the service and create your first document. It will be available on any device with internet connection. and your notes will remain private unless you choose to share them with specific people. For fun, start off with these. So there's workflow, check visit, online outliner, Fargo, the outliner of giants, Mindmeister, and the brain. So these are just different ones. As you can see, you can hit a direct link from the textbook and figure out which one you like the best. Consider dedicated note-taking software. Many note-taking applications offer features that go beyond plain text editing and online services. So Simple Note is one, National Velocity is another, Resoft Notes is another, Evernote, which a lot of you already know about, and Microsoft OneNote is the other. By the way, we have OneNote for free as customers because of the college, and as customers of Outlook and our email through Outlook, we have OneNote for free as well. I recommend that you guys, if you have not logged into your Outlook to access your email, I would recommend highly. There's a bunch of apps and a bunch of things that we are getting for free due to ASA College and our Outlook email. So that takes us to the end of the chapter. So like I said, your written assignment for this week, there's two of them. I will just focus on this one until we meet for the second one, because I'm going to talk more specifically about the second part of the mini research paper. But for the first written assignment, I went over the questions. It has to do with the note takings. So, and that is due Sunday, July 7th. That's a mistake. It should read July 5th, and I'm going to change that now. It's Sunday, July 5th for both assignments. When you're done now watching this, please take the lecture quiz and have a good day.